When your miles expire, that's pure cash in the airline's pocket. Those who aren't getting their rewards are basically throwing money in the trash can.
The CEO and founder of The Points Guy, Brian Kelly.
Here to help us get a little bit more bang for our travel bucks.
The Points Guy, Brian Kelly.
There are so many credit cards out there. How do you choose the right one?
Everyone wants free travel. So the best, in my opinion, is...
I'm Erica Kohlberg, and you're listening to the Erica Taught Me podcast. So, Brian, the first thing I wanted to ask you is, what do you think are the biggest misconceptions around points and travel hacking and credit cards?
I think the biggest misconception about points is that you need to be a frequent traveler in order to take advantage of all these amazing perks. And it's simply not true these days. Like, the best way to get value out of points is through your credit card, maximizing your everyday spending. And there are so many bonuses out there where you can go from 0 to 100 in almost no time by just like choosing the right credit card, bonuses, where you put your spend. Anyone can do it. We've got college kids who are flying first class to study abroad.
Yeah. If you were to describe to someone who has no idea what travel hacking or using points means, what do you say?
So high level, airline frequent flyer programs were created as a tool to get people to fly more. Not to go too much into detail, but the airlines used to be regulated by the government. When the government allowed them to compete, they thought, well, we need to start, how do we get the best customers to fly on our airline? So when they first started, they really were about those business travelers, frequent travelers. But what they've morphed into over the last 30 years, 40 years is incredible. It's arguably, frequent flyer miles and points are the most effective marketing tool that's ever been created. So the airlines now, many airlines will now sell more frequent flyer miles to credit card companies and they make more money on that. There's a higher margin than they do actually flying planes, because everyone wants free travel, right? Everyone wants to stick it to airlines and credit card companies. So the credit card companies have made a huge business out of getting tons and tons of new cardholders by offering these frequent flyer miles. Now, where does the consumer stand in all of this? In the middle, right? So the consumers, and at the Points Guy, what we try to do is say, well, the airlines are making a boatload. Credit card companies make billions. Every single time you swipe your card, that merchant is paying a fortune to have their credit card, processed. The consumer can win by getting the most amount back in rewards. And simply put, you're watching this and you're not earning points on every dollar you spend, you are financing my points. Because the whole system, and especially in the US, the cost of running a credit card transaction is built in, whether you go to Saks or, maybe there's a couple gas stations that'll give you a cash discount. But in general, like the cost of doing, buying things on credit cards is built in. So those who aren't getting their rewards are basically throwing money in the trash can.
Yeah. What do you say? There are a lot of people who grow up thinking credit is bad, don't use credit cards. They've been told by their parents, for whatever reason, not to use credit cards because it leads to credit card debt. What do you say to those people?
I can speak from experience because in college, I was stupid. I got a credit card, the University of Pittsburgh MBNA card. I think I got an umbrella in the quad. They gave me like a $2,500 credit line. I was an idiot and spent it. And then they kept raising it. So all of a sudden I was $6,000 in credit card debt. It's like quicksand. And it's crazy. If you run balances, you will lose at this game 100%. So if you are in immense credit card debt, your number one goal should be getting out of debt. Like I always say, my debt-free journey was the best trip I've ever taken, right? Because that minute that you can, get out of debt and into a place where you can pay your bills in full every month, it's from that point that you can start really winning at the points game. Because the travel credit cards, if you're paying monthly balances, if you're paying interest on those, you're negating the value of any of those points. So to win at the points game, you must be, smart about how you pay your bills off in full. That being said, a lot of people who make great salaries still have that mindset of, let me just pay cash. And I see it all the time. I know a billionaire friend of mine was using a debit card up until I met him, and he was just like, oh, simplicity, and there's a peace of mind knowing that I don't owe anyone anything. But the perverse aspect of credit in the United States is if you're not building credit and spending every month and keeping your balances down, your score's not going to go up. And you should think about your credit score as one of your most important assets. And FICO lists it on their website. Half of your FICO score is paying your bills on time and keeping your debt to credit ratio low, paying them off in full. Your score will go up. So for people who don't want to pay attention to credit or play by the rules, you're really doing yourself a disservice, not just from foregoing valuable points, but also by foregoing a strong credit score, which will unlock cheaper mortgage rates and so many other things in our society. So if you can pay your bills off in full every month, there's no reason in the world that you should not be putting your expenses on credit cards, reaping the rewards, and then paying them off in full each month to avoid any interest.
Yeah. So take me through. I am a college student. I've decided that I will be responsible with my credit. I want to eventually, let's say, go on a dream first-class vacation to the Maldives on points. What are my steps? What's the time horizon also?
If you have no real credit history, so one of the tips that a lot of my younger friends do is that you can actually get an authorized user card on your parents' credit card if they have good credit. And the way, depending on the credit card company, but all of a sudden you may inherit their amazing credit score. So what I recommend, if you have the privilege of doing that, that's a great first way to give your credit history a little bit of cred. And then once you have that, you can get, in college, I would recommend get a Chase Sapphire card, because my dad once told me cheap is expensive. And that goes for credit cards. The no-fee cards are not the best cards for a lot of different reasons, but the easiest to see is just sign-up bonuses. The credit card sign-up bonuses, the banks lose money on you for years because they want to get you in as a customer. That's why they offer these huge sign-up bonuses. So if you have, I would say 680 or higher FICO score, you probably can qualify for your own Sapphire card. If not, if they decline you, which is totally normal, I would recommend you can always go for a Discover card. Discover's all of their cards are no fee. It's a lower credit profile. Get a Discover card or even a Chase Freedom. Chase Freedom in general, Freedom Unlimited is a really solid card, because what happens with the Chase ecosystem is as your score goes up, you can get their Sapphire cards, which then unlock your rewards for that Maldives trip. Freedom in itself is a cash back card, but if you then get a Sapphire card, you can then transfer those cash back points into the airline partners, which is where you get mega value back, which we'll get into, I'm sure, today.
Yeah.
But if you can't even get a normal credit card, say you've had some blemishes, it's okay. You can get a secured credit card. Or actually, a lot of immigrants, you can be a billionaire in London and move to the United States and have the credit score of a 16-year-old, which is so crazy. There is a company called Nova Credit. It's the first ever international credit score for like 25 different countries, from India to Singapore to Hong Kong. If you move to the US, they're now integrated with Amex, where they will pull your international credit so you can get approved for a US credit card, which I think is super innovative. But say you can't do that, get a secured credit card, put $250, or they'll make you put $500 down as collateral, which you basically draw against your own collateral, which means it's very little risk but the credit card companies, if you pay your bill each month on time, it's pretty quick how, your score will start to shoot up, and they'll give you your own credit. So once you graduate from a secured credit card, prove to yourself that you can pay your bill off, then you can graduate, There's always ways to check your FICO score for free. There are a lot of FACO scores out there, the fake credit scores, which you know a lot about. What you really want to pay attention to is your FICO score. So every couple months, check that. Once your FICO score gets up in the 700 range, the gates are open. You can pretty much get most of the juicy travel credit cards, and there are tons of them out there.
I'm curious, are credit card companies still making money off of people like you who know the systems, know the ins and the outs? Or are they more so making money off the people who, let's say, do carry balances, do open the credit cards and then eventually carry the balances?
Yeah, so customers like myself and yourself, we're prime or super prime customers, meaning we don't carry big balances and we pay our bills off in full every month. Now, the credit card companies still make money on us, because there's a lot of ways credit card companies make money. The annual fee they charge you plus the interest. And a lot of people, unfortunately, in America do carry balances and pay hefty fees. But the big thing is the merchant transaction. So that's why even someone like me, I haven't paid interest in over a decade. They're still making money on every transaction that I do. Now, they lose money on me. For example, my Citi Prestige card, which is no longer publicly available, but I have, and it's 5 points per dollar on dining. And I do lots of dining.
Yeah.
So when you think about it, and I can transfer those Citi points to airlines that Citi's paying over 1 cent per point, and for me to do that. So I'm getting 5% back on a transaction that they're probably getting 3% on from the merchant. So in that specific category, Citi's losing. But they make it up, if I use my card in other categories, that's 1 point per dollar, then they make up for it. So in general, I don't want anyone here to ever feel sorry for the credit card companies. They are making plenty of money. They're publicly traded companies. You can see for yourself. So don't feel bad. And don't feel bad. I mean, not that I don't think anyone's going to feel bad about getting value back from the airlines. Some people will say, well, if you're encouraging everyone to redeem for first class, the airlines are losing money. It's just not how it works. Fundamentally, the airlines decide what tickets are eligible for frequent flyer mile tickets.
Yeah.
So yes, while at the Points Guy, we try to educate people on the highest value redemptions. At the end of the day, the airlines are deciding which seats to open up. And in general, it's unsold inventory. Those seats would have went out empty. So even if you're redeeming 80,000 points that you transferred from your credit card, the airline's still getting revenue from that. So they'd rather get frequent flyer revenue than the empty seats. So don't feel bad about anyone. Everyone's making money. It's like my mission to make sure consumers, in this part of the triangle, the consumers are getting their value back.
Yeah. You've been in the space for so long now, this points game. How have you seen the industry change over time?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I actually got into points in 1995. I was 12 years old. My dad traveled. And I was always the computer whiz in our house. Like in the early 90s, I was like a prodigy AOL kid. And my dad was like, you're so technically savvy. These miles are so confusing. And I'm one of 4 kids. We grew up middle-class family outside of Philadelphia. And he's like, if you can figure out how to use these points, we can go. And he was thinking Orlando or maybe Phoenix. Precocious me was like, that's boring. I want to go somewhere cool. So I had just read The Firm by John Grisham, and they went to the Cayman Islands, which sounded so amazing. So back in 95, there were no online redemption websites or apps or tools. So I called up the airline, and this is still one of the tips I use today. Being nice gets you so far. So I was really nice to Sheila at US Airways, and I pretended to be my dad speaking in a deeper voice. And she lit up because I think, airline agents get screamed at all day long.
Yeah.
And I was so nice to her. We chatted. I learned about her kid, and she helped figure out how to get our family of 6 using his US Airways miles to the Cayman Islands. And I booked the trip that day. I didn't even ask my parents. They didn't even know where the Cayman Islands were. And when I told them we were going to Grand Cayman, my dad legitimately thought for like 2 weeks we were going to the Grand Canyon. And then when he saw GCM, what's this airport code? And so my first trip was in the 90s, and points back then were very much like you just had to call, hope for the best. As we look forward to today, I mean, there's still an element of that where you can ask nicely for airlines to open up award inventory space, especially if you're an elite traveler. But certainly the technology has changed. So to get back to your question of how these programs have evolved, they're still based on, it's less based on travel. They're not frequent flyer programs or frequent buyer programs. Now, if you have the right credit cards and you're spending, and especially for small businesses, like I earn most of my points today still because the Points Guy, we do all of our online advertising. So like Amex Business Gold gives 4x points for Google ads, Facebook ads, et cetera. So having multiple cards and the Ink card. And so this whole small business side of things is really lucrative route. And for people listening, you don't need to have a 100-person small business. You can be a sole proprietor with an Etsy shop and then open up the whole world of business credit cards. And there are huge bonuses in spend categories.
What are your favorite business credit cards?
I mean, Amex Business Gold they give you 4x on your top 2 categories, and then they do it for you, which I really like. Some credit cards just have fixed bonus categories, so you kind of have to do the math. Chase Ink is been a no-brainer for years. They all the different bonus categories. So those are like the top 2 business cards we use. And plus the Amex card is a charge card. So when we spend sometimes $50,000 in a week, it's nice to have that spend capability. But when I sold the Points Guy years ago, part of the deal was you still need to let me put all of my expenses on my credit cards, not a corporate card that, wouldn't earn points. Cause I'm like, and still it's the number one way. We don't take free flights from airlines and hotels in general at the Points Guy. Very few circumstances. We generate all of these points through our advertising spend and then use that for our editorial team to do reviews.
Got it. What I find so interesting is the business side of things. So you started the Points Guy in 2010.
Yep.
And you sold it in
2012.
2012, so just 2 years later. And when you started in 2010, you were saying you didn't know what affiliate marketing is.
I had no
So
idea.
for people who don't understand what affiliate marketing is, can you kind of explain?
Yeah. So when I started the Points Guy in 2010, so the original Points Guy business model was not a blog even. It actually started in April of 2010. And what I wanted to do was use my expertise booking airline miles and then just do a side hustle. So I was working at Morgan Stanley. I was running technology campus recruiting. So I was in HR, not making a lot of money. And I was like, and during the recession, I got promoted, but they'd be like, your bonus this year is not getting laid off. Come back again next year. And I had a great experience at Morgan Stanley. I'm not putting it down, but it was really tough to be back office during the recession.
Yeah.
I would plan all of my friends' trips and points. And to me, it's like doing a crossword puzzle. So I was doing it for free, helping people plan these amazing trips. And my ex was like, Brian, you do this so well and you love it. You should create a business out of it. So the Points Guy was just a form website where you could enter in your information. It would email me. I'd see if I could help you. I'm like, oh yeah, this is reasonable. I have, 1 million Amex points and I want 2 people to Paris next summer. So I would use all these tools, Expert Flyer, my institutional knowledge. The idea of blogging was to get more people from the internet to my award booking business.
Yeah.
But my dad said to me smartly, he's like, how are you going to scale this? You can't, and he's like, you need to find a way to make money in your sleep. And I'm like, duh, Dad, like who doesn't? Like great advice. But it was great advice, but I never thought like that, people, advertisers like Amex would want to work with a blogger, right? It's 2010, that was still very nascent. But in early 2011, a friend from college was like, you have to meet with me. I work for, at the time it was called Linkshare, which is now Rakuten, like one of the largest affiliate networks. He said, Brian, you're blogging every single day about Amex and Chase and this card and that card. He's like, you're linking directly to their websites. He's like, what if I told you that if you just use one of our links, we will track all the traffic you send and then pay you. We don't pay you per click. You've got to get approvals, and to get a Prime credit card approval, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
But I always joke, I was blogging on a gold mine because all of my readers were consultants, bankers, and lawyers in New York, LA, and Chicago. Like, the consultants, and to this day, they're still those are my people, right? They're on the road every week. And when you're spending and giving your life to your company, like getting those loyalty points is like, it is a bonus. Like that's how you justify not being home for all those family events and not having a dating life because you're away Monday through Thursday. So anyway, I got into affiliate marketing and he said, you don't change anything. He's like, just keep writing, but where you put United Explorer card, use this link. And I remember the first day, I didn't even hyperlink it correctly. I think I put the hyperlink as text instead of and he called me up. He's like, you're making me look so bad. He's like, I got you approved into this affiliate program and you're going to get me fired. Quickly, it became the first month, I think I earned $5,000. And that was nearly what my salary was. And I'm like, this is, I had 25,000 unique monthlies at the time. But I quickly learned that more content, serviceable content around the credit cards, the more clicks I would get. It's natural, right? The more you write about something. And it really was April of 2011, the New York Times. One tip I give to entrepreneurs, always go through your spam inbox, because I was going through my spam inbox in April or March of 2011, and the New York Times had written to me. And it was Seth Kugel, who was the Frugal Traveler columnist, who was huge in travel at the time. And he said, I've been hearing all about this Points Guy stuff, but for budget travelers, I tell my readers not to use points, just book the cheapest flight. So I was like, oh no, buddy. I met up with him in New York at a bar for 3 hours, changed his whole view. He booked a free flight to Brazil. His girlfriend was from Brazil. And he's like, I wasn't going to be able to see her this quarter because I didn't have the money, but I used, he was over the moon. And to this day, that's the joy of doing what I do. When I can help people unlock what they're sitting on already. So the New York Times wrote about the Points Guy, and unbeknownst to me, that link back increased my SEO dramatically. And then the site traffic tripled, and the affiliate marketing money. I remember that day just thinking I had thousands of clicks. Instead of hundreds of clicks on credit card links, it was 25,000. And I think that was a day that I made 6 figures in one day in 2011. God. So I actually quit my job at Morgan Stanley that day.
I remember reading that.
I still stayed on until June because my mom, so I quit in April, but I stayed on through June because my mom was because she's like, this is too good to be true, right? Being the cutest mom that she could be. But luckily, no, the revenue, the affiliate revenue kicked in. And then I was like, well, the more content I write, the more money I make. But it was definitely a little challenging being the Points Guy, bringing on different writers, and then in the spring of 2012, a friend was like, you need to meet the CEO of Bankrate. And Bankrate at the time was the website. Like if you Googled anything like savings, home mortgage rates, et cetera, Bankrate was the personal finance site, pre-NerdWallet, and they own creditcards.com and a bunch of other tiny credit card websites. And I had, I was a blogger with a year of revenue, and I was like, there's no way a publicly traded company is going to want to buy a blog of a 28-year-old. But they did. They saw the potential of like, let's have this kind of luxury travel tuck in. And so in May of 2012, I sold the site. And a decade later, I'm still here, and it's been a wild ride. And I always joke that they're going to have to pry me out of the first class seat to get me to stop doing this.
As an entrepreneur, what are some things that you feel like didn't come naturally to you and you had to learn it or train?
I definitely think management was a big thing for me. That's not my skill in life. And I think I kind of burnt out right before the pandemic. I think I was trying to prove to Red Ventures that I was still had it in me to run this business and be the face of the company. It's like you can't be in front of the camera and behind the camera doing it all. It's just never going to work. So over the pandemic, I realized I'm not me being managing. There's so many other smart people managers. Like I just don't enjoy being in HR meetings, and but employee development is very important for those employees. So I realized, luckily Red Ventures and why I'm still here at the company is I don't manage anyone now. I'm like our key spokesperson, doing things like this, bringing our, my knowledge and the knowledge of the company to millions more people. That's really what I love doing. So it's kind of cool. And I would say to entrepreneurs who are looking at selling a company is really look at your bed partner, talk to other people who have sold companies to them, because I know so many companies, my friends have sold to companies that will, ask things like, what is my expense report going to be like? What is my authority to sign off on expenses? I knew someone who sold a business to a PE company, and he had anything over $100, he had to get approved by someone in a different office, right?
Oh my goodness.
And, so luckily my partners that I've sold to have seen we need to travel. We need to, and like I said, we don't take freebies from the airlines because I think our reviews are more trustworthy when they're not necessarily paid for by the airlines and the hotel companies. Now my role, I'm so much happier. Like the weight has been lifted off my shoulder. And I think my employees are the same. Like, we love you, but like probably you managing everyone and, was not the best fit. So I think that's been the biggest learning experience for me. But opening up and being vulnerable and being like, I don't need to be the boss of everyone and everything at every point. And now it's just so fulfilling for me to see all these teams, growing and pushing our content in ways that I never thought that we would.
Yeah. And burnout's very funny because a lot of entrepreneurs experience this burnout. And unfortunately, a lot of them don't realize the warning signs in time to implement changes in order to help them continue to work at the company. A lot of them only realize that, wow, I'm really burnt out when they're just done. They want no involvement whatsoever.
The biggest gift I think that ever was given to me was at Red Ventures, we had a leadership coach that coaches our CEO. And he kind of loaned her to me for a couple months. And because I would always assume, hey, the business, numbers wise, we're gangbuster. We're on, getting booked on all these TV shows. Readers love us. And, I'm getting this one-way feedback of people like, TPG, you're a god. Everything's great. We love you. The site, we're doing these big deals. So that was my main source of feedback. So in my head, I'm like, oh, everything's fine. Yeah, I know I'm like a tough boss and right. But getting an executive leadership coach who independently went in, and we also had year-end reviews and my employees, but employees aren't always feeling comfortable through official company channels to give you the feedback that you actually need. So I was living in a vortex for a long time, not, looking at the burnout signals that were happening around me, but having an independent leadership coach come in, and she met, confidentially with people. And then I got the report, and it was like a big, shock to me. But it was like, in the end, she's like, this will be the biggest gift you get. Like, this is going to be hard to swallow. No one hates you, and it was like, wow. But it allowed me to push my, and change the way I work and focus on the things that I'm actually good at.
Yeah.
Which is why now I'm not burnt out and I'm as excited as ever to stay and, continue to innovate.
So I remember reading a headline, maybe in the past year, about one of the airlines going after you. Is that right?
Indeed. We always knew creating an app that gives consumers more power into their points. And one of the things that I love about our app is if your miles are going to expire, we will push alert you. And as I'm pro-consumer at the end of the day, I feel like consumers are my boss. So we created features like that because I don't want a single mile to go expired. I want to empower people to do something very simple like shop online and you can reset that expiration. But we knew that might rankle some feathers. The airlines make a lot of money not every airline, a lot of airlines have no expiration policies, but when your miles expire, that's pure cash in the airline's pocket. They win, you lose. American Airlines, for example, does expire their members' miles. And so they unfortunately decided to cease and desist us. They didn't, they came up with a lot of different reasons why the TPG app was bad. At the end of the day, we don't track anyone's miles. If the consumer says, hey, TPG, we've read your security, we take security very seriously, I want to allow you to track my balances and inform me. So if consumers do that, that's how, we're not scraping people's accounts. We're not doing anything that the consumer doesn't want. Fundamentally, we believe the consumer, just like you have the right to track your 401k and your monthly spending in apps like Mint, right? Because it makes you a smarter person when you have more total vision into your finances. I believe that's the same with loyalty. When people don't have to check 100 websites, when you can see in one spot, this is my net worth in points, and let's put all of these different points so I can go to Bora Bora for free. I think the consumer wins there. There have been lawsuits back and forth. We're currently still, technically in the legal process. I will say, I think both sides, at the point where we don't want to waste our time and money on lawsuits, and these lawsuits can get extremely expensive very quickly. So I'm very optimistic that it will be resolved. I think, it's just different mindsets. I think American has a more old school mindset of the consumer and their data. I'm pretty confident we'll be able to resolve it, but I knew we'd ruffle some feathers. But having the world's largest airline sue you was something, if you would have asked me 5 years ago, probably wouldn't have been on my roadmap. But, I still would like to say, though, even though on the app side, we still work with American Airlines, it is important to our readers. So I don't involve our editorial team in the lawsuit, for example. We do have it separate. And I do think for our credibility, you're not going to just see AA taken off the points guy. I'm confident we'll be able to come to a resolution.
That's so interesting. It actually is such a big problem, though, the expiring points. I can't tell you how many people have messaged me saying, oh, points are expiring. So I actually have 2 fine print hacks, and then you can tell me if you have any more to add to this. So one, and obviously as a disclaimer, this doesn't apply to all airlines, all situations, but one, I made a video on this, is that if your points are expiring, you can go ahead and buy a flight. And then every flight has a 24-hour cancellation policy. So then within those 24 hours, go ahead and cancel the flight. And then for some airlines, your points will then reset as if you've purchased the flight. So then they reset for another year or whatever. And then another one, my dad actually used to do this. I forget which airline it is, but you can actually donate your miles. So if you donate 1,000 miles to one of the charity organizations they've partnered with, that also shows that you've used your miles, then it resets and extends it.
Absolutely. Those are great hacks at most programs. It will work. You just need some activity in your account. Another one, and just a general tip, if you're listening, if you shop online, repeat after me, never go directly to a retailer's website. Because there's cashback portals, but also airline mileage portals. For example, AdvantageeShopping.com is American Airlines, and you can buy a $5 item from a retailer, and it'll take a week or two for those points to go into your Advantage account. But you earn points directly into your loyalty account plus the credit card points from using a credit card. It's like a double dipping opportunity. So versus going into a store where you're just going to earn those credit card points, shopping through an online shopping portal, and that activity will 100% reset the clock. But yeah, there are easy things you can do. You don't have to fly to keep your miles active. It's a lot harder to get them back once they expire. The airlines will try to charge you. Always keep an eye on your expirations. So luckily, Delta, United, and Alaska have gotten rid of expiration dates on their miles, but some programs, there's nuances. So
is it hard being expected to be an encyclopedia for all things points when things are constantly changing too?
It is. The industry changes every day, mergers and program changes. And it is so, on one hand, it's like job security for us. We always have things to write about. And that's why I think with our app, continuing to build and having personalized information, because at the points that we write 30 articles a day, but we're moving towards a feed of the most relevant things to you. So if you're a JetBlue flyer, or if you tell us you want to go to Bali, and if there's Bali flight deals, I want to create a more personal relationship with our readers to give more, contextual, relevant content. I think that's a big thing on our roadmap to do, to sift through. There's so much noise, and what do I actually need to know?
Yeah. What is the redemption that you are most proud of?
Okay, well, I will say this. The best use of points that I've ever used has been to help save people's lives. Specifically, if you donate points to Rainbow Railroad, it's an amazing organization I've been working with for years. They help LGBTQ plus people around the world who are living in countries where it's illegal, they're at risk of jail or death. And so we donate points. I personally donate quite a bit of points to Rainbow Railroad. And so in Chechnya, there are gay concentration camps where they're trying to eradicate the gay scourge. I read about it in the New York Times. I was like, I put my head in the sand. I'm like, this can't be real. But luckily, Rainbow Railroad, we actually have safe houses in Russia, and then we use points, Aeroplan points. You can donate Amex to Aeroplan and some other airlines we're working with to get more miles. And then we fly them to countries like Canada and Argentina, and we declare asylum. So I met some of the Chechen refugees in Toronto that we helped save, and to look someone in the eyes. And when he said to me, Brian, when the plane was taking off from the small airport in Russia, and I knew I was on my way to freedom and I'd be able to live a free life. He's like, all I want to do is go to concerts like everyone else. And knowing my frequent flyer miles, it's like roughly 75,000 points can help save a life. To me, there's no better redemption of points out there. And there are tons of different charities that you can donate points to. So I always like to say, giving to others, Make-A-Wish is another one we work a lot with. I think 70% of Wish Kids' wishes include travel. So donating your points to them is amazing. And I've been on Wish trips and spoken to and to see young kids get to experience these life-changing moments. That's, I think, where the real magic is. If you ask me just like personally, I love flying Emirates. When it comes to, I always say like the golden age of travel is now if you actually fly the right airlines. So Emirates is a transfer partner of Amex, Chase, Bilt, Capital One, and it's like 136,250 miles one way. And last year I flew Dubai JFK on their brand new 777 and their game-changing suite. And that's floor-to-ceiling doors, the Emirates first class experience, even on the A380 where you get to take a shower at 40,000 feet is just out of this world. So I love redeeming for Emirates and also when you walk on an Emirates plane, it's like the United Nations. You never know, your flight attendants are going to be from Uganda or Egypt. And it's just so, to me, that is like the inspired way of flying. Yes, it's a little over the top. And some people say the gold bling bling's gaudy, but like, I just think Emirates that's like, when I want to get re-inspired to travel, I love flying Emirates.
Emirates is the best. I have to caveat this because my husband and we flew Emirates first and business class. And so I got him a first class ticket on points, of course. And then I really wanted to get myself one too, but they had run out. So I got on business. And
you're a good wife.
I am. But at the airport, we tried to switch. He was like, no, I want my wife to ride first. And just for regulations, they cannot let you switch tickets. But I did, when we entered, I sat in it for a good 20 seconds, enough to film some videos. And it was magical. You're
like those influencers that get caught in first class. I always see on online, like the influencers on private jets, but then it ends up being a movie set or they take a picture real quick when they board. You're the real deal. One other thing. So if you're flying Emirates, when the doors close, you can actually try to upgrade on the plane as well. Emirates is one of the few airlines that always schmooze the purser, just try to be as nice as possible. If there's open seats, which I don't know if there were that flight, but one of the key tips, it never hurts to ask. It still goes to this day, be extremely nice and you'd be shocked, hotel upgrades, just being a genuinely nice person, especially during these times when staff is so overworked and the travel industry is underpaid.
For sure. And it's all in their control, right? And why would anyone want to help a person who's being rude to them?
Right. I know. And I get it. People are especially people who don't travel a lot, it is stressful, but trust me, honey, the gate agent at LaGuardia wants you out of their face. They're not delaying the flight for fun to mess with you. They want you out of there. Flight attendants on most airlines don't even get paid until the flight is in the air. So yes, it's annoying you're on the tarmac, and yes, they should be giving you water and snacks, but just have a little bit of grace. Get the mentality that everyone in the travel industry is against you. It's, everyone is just at their wit's end.
Yeah. Have you ever been upgraded to business or first without having to pay an additional fee or extra points?
Yes. So it's operational upgrades. And my first one, pre-points guy, was 2008. My ex and I were flying to Buenos Aires from JFK on Delta. And I'm a points nerd. I was broke as hell. I had no money to my name, but I looked on Expert Flyer and I saw that the flight was zeroed out, meaning that the Delta was no longer selling tickets, which to me is like, oh, they're oversold, because airlines will keep overselling a flight. But if they won't even sell a ticket on a plane, there's probably going to be a situation when they weren't actually oversold. But I went up to the gate agent, and I'm 6'7", so I'm always like, let me just like let her know that I'm super tall. Let me charm her. And I just remember she was so friendly. I was like, hey girl, like if there's a need, I'm like here to fall on a sword for you. Like if you really need to like open up a coach seat, like I'm happy to sit in business class. And she was just like, she laughed at me. She's like, you're crazy. But she's like, give me your boarding pass. She's like, I can't promise anything. But then when I was boarding the plane, I was like, my heart was racing, and it's like, and then all of a sudden, doot, 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 and it shoots out like a mini new boarding pass. And it was a 10.5-hour flight, my first ever true international like business class, and on a Delta old 767. But that was like probably the best upgrade of my life.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, never. And that's another thing. If you're ever going to take a bump, airlines are oversold. When they're going to rebook you, always ask for first class on the next flight. It never hurts to ask. They have the ability, especially if the gate agent's stressed. Negotiate for the best price. Don't over negotiate, but like say, hey, this is my bottom line, and put me in first on the next flight. And a lot of times they'll actually rebook you in a paid first class ticket, so you're earning more miles as well.
Yeah. I mean, you saw the headlines recently about the $10,000
Yeah.
offered to get bumped from the flight,
Yeah.
which is insane.
Crazy.
And
Yeah.
I was shocked because I polled my audience, and I thought I polled them asking, if you were offered $10,000 to change flights, would you take it? And I think only 70% said yes. Like I don't care
No,
what the
it's like,
situation
my
is.
time's
Like
not that valuable. Yeah.
$10,000, I'm doing
Yeah.
it.
Unless it's I will say at the tail end of a trip. So I love animals. I have amazing dog, and I have such like dog FOMO by the end of a trip, like where I'm like, I probably would turn down 10,000 just because like if I know I'm gonna like hug my dog within like 6 hours, like. But actually no, that's
You're
not
the
true.
points guy, though.
Yeah,
You have a
no,
very
I have
different
tons
life
of points
from-
a mile, so yeah, I guess my situation's different.
I know my audience would want me to ask you this. There are so many credit cards out there. How do you choose the right one?
So there are three main types of rewards cards. The best, in my opinion, is what we call transferable points credit card. So that's, you get a credit card with a bank. It's a Chase Sapphire, Amex Gold, Capital One Venture, Bilt Rewards. Those are the key programs that I have most of my points in. So the transferable cards allow you to bank points and then transfer to a number of different partners. Truly, Amex Gold, 4X on dining and groceries, what so many people spend on. So you want to look at a card that's going to reward you for the categories you spend the most in. Bilt Rewards is the only credit card that gives you points on rent. So you're able to pay up to $50,000 a year in rent with no fees, no annual fee. And those points you can actually transfer to United, American, Hyatt, and a bunch of others. So if you're paying rent, absolutely, that's a no-brainer card, because when you actually put your rent on your credit card, it actually increases your score over time. But in terms of like best all-around transferable points, the Chase Sapphire Reserve is kind of like the primo card, triple points on travel and dining. And what I want to encourage people is the travel category. It's not just airlines and hotels. That's Uber, it's MTA, transit, parking, tolls, you name it. So the name of the game is like getting credit cards that align with your biggest spend categories. So that's like on the transferable point side where you should really look to. And I use Capital One Venture X. That's 2 points on everything. So when I'm not earning 4 and 5 in these top categories, base spend, you want to be earning more than 1 point per dollar. The second type of cards you should look into are the co-branded cards. So airline and hotel credit cards. And their earning rates are not as rich as the transferable cards in general, but it's the perks or where it's at. So a lot of hotel credit cards will give you a free night just for renewing at $89, but you can use that free night at a $300 hotel.
Yeah.
So it's always just about doing the math. I mean, same thing with the airline cards, getting free check bags. If you're paying check bag fees, or if you're paying for airline lounges at $600 a year, it's cheaper to get airline lounge for $450 on an American, Executive Advantage card. And the crazy thing about that card is also I want people to know is once you have a card, you can get additional card holders. A lot of these cards will give you free additional card holders that also get lounge access and a ton of other perks. Like on the Amex Platinum, for $175, you can get 3 additional card holders. That's $58 and 33 cents per additional card holder. And they get Global Entry, Delta Lounge Access, Centurion. It pays for itself many times over. So if you have people that you trust looking into the additional card holders. Then the final type is cash back. So if you don't want to travel, this points thing sounds too complicated. A Citi double cash card, which is basically 2% back when you pay your bill on time. That's like the gold standard. You should be looking for at least 2% cash back base. Bank of America has a premium rewards card that can get you more than that if you have some of your investment accounts. So at a very minimum, you're earning 2% back base level, but through the points credit cards, their perks, their bonus categories, you can be getting way more than that. For every 100,000 you spend, 2,000 is the baseline where you should be getting value. But if you spend 100,000 and you're getting 4x in dining here and there, all of a sudden you can be easily getting $6,000, $7,000, $10,000 back in that spend per year in the form of rewards.
So I want to also mention credit card churning. This is something I used to do very actively, where I would open a credit card just to obtain the bonus, let's say 100,000 points after I spent $3,000 in 3 months. And then eventually a year later, I would say, oh, okay, maybe I'll just go ahead and downgrade this card or cancel this card. Can you talk about credit card churning and then also downgrading or canceling cards?
So the biggest thing about credit cards that you should look out for, so the sign-up bonuses are juicy and great, but don't apply all at once for a bunch of cards because you don't want to bite off more than you can chew. Also, you want to be smart and methodical. Like I have 25 credit cards. I don't recommend anyone getting 25 cards, but my FICO score is near perfect because I'm maniacal about paying them. And the more credit cards you have and the more you pay off, your score actually goes up. But the credit card companies are onto this because every time you get a 100,000 point bonus, that's literally, they're giving you $1,500 in cash or thereabouts. So if you just open and close like crazy, you can get banned from a credit card company. If you open and close after 3 months, you're sending them a signal like, hey, I'm going to punch you in the face. And, they hate when people cancel cards. So I recommend keeping cards open for as long as possible. Every year, do an inventory. Does it bring me more value than the annual fee? If it doesn't, don't cancel the card, downgrade to a no annual fee card that credit card issuer has. Almost every issuer has them. That way you keep the relationship, you keep the average age of your accounts longer, which is a part of your FICO score. But yeah, every 3 to 6 months to get 1 or 2 new credit cards is totally sustainable. And you just have to be aware, for Chase credit cards are the most popular. There's lots of them out there. They have what's called the 524 rule. Basically, if you have 5 credit cards from the last 24 months from any issuer, they might automatically deny you. So when you're thinking about getting into this credit card game, you might want to front load getting the Sapphire Freedom card or Ink card first, because once you have 5 cards within 2 years, they may block you. So doing a little more research on the 524 rule. But in general, you just want to be a good customer, pay your bills on time, keep the accounts open if possible, and you shouldn't have any issues. If, there is a Reddit forum called Churning where people go extreme and you can get the same card multiple times. That does come with risks. The credit card companies can just cut you off for life, and it does happen to some people. But the thing about this credit card game is you don't need to be going that extreme to get a bunch of free trips every year and save thousands of dollars.
We were talking earlier about how at the airports, you can try to be very nice and possibly they might give you a favor, upgrade you to first class. What are some things that I can call the credit card companies and get favors on? So for instance, one thing that I've always done is right before I want to cancel a card because the annual fee doesn't make sense to me, I go ahead and call them and say, hey, would it be possible to waive the annual fee this year? Is there anything else that people can be doing to call their credit card companies?
Once again, back to it never hurts to ask. So before canceling a card, you can, if they don't budge, you can say, let me just talk to a retention agent. Credit card companies might waive your fee. They might give you 50,000 points, which actually are worth more than the fee. So you should always see, instead of the waive fee, hey, do you have a points option as well? If you're in the armed services, you can get your annual fees waived with most major credit card issuers. In general, I think there's so many offers now on credit cards. Chase just launched a deal with Instacart. You can earn 10x points on Lyft. Amex offers can be super valuable. They have a lot of travel offers too. Like I've seen, spend $1,000 with Air France and get 300 back. Plus you're earning points for, using a credit card that earns 5x on airfare. So there's a lot of ways to get value back from the credit card companies, even purchase protections. I had bought a Moncler jacket, was in Iceland filming vlogs, and I left this beautiful parka.
Oh.
And I called up, I put it on my Amex Platinum, and Amex instantly took the $2,000 off my bill. I didn't need a police report because it was within 90 days. So understanding there are huge perks, concert tickets, So whenever you get a credit card, spend time understanding the perks. Google, obviously I'm biased, the Points Guy, how to get the most out of my Amex Platinum. We'll have the 10 things you need to do, make sure you get your Uber credits, your Saks credits. It can be overwhelming, but when you do that every year, am I getting more value from this card than what I'm paying for it? These $550 plus cards can easily pay for themselves many times over than, the no annual fee options.
For people who have credit card debt, how do you feel about balance transfers?
Yeah. So your number one goal if you have credit card debt is get out of the quicksand pit. And obviously paying 20% plus APR will make it nearly impossible. So yeah, you should, instead of focus on the points and miles later, but 0% balance transfer offers, it's amazing because it neutralizes, even though there usually is a 3% fee to transfer, when you do the math, if you're getting a year to 18 months, you need to neutralize it because it's literally quicksand. It's almost impossible, barring you getting an inheritance or, to get out of that. So absolutely look into 0% balance transfer. I know there are top credit cards out there that, have that. But in general, just be maniacal, get yourself out of credit card debt. It will be the best thing you ever do for yourself.
Yeah. What are some of the favorite trips you've taken?
So I love South Africa. I absolutely love South Africa. Cape Town is just a beautiful city, and safari. I love animals. So Sabi Sands, Singita Lebombo has been one of my favorite safari to date, and I've done them all across Africa. Delta now flies to Cape Town, United as well, so you can fly nonstop from the US, which is exciting. I also am a scuba diver, so Maldives.
Of course.
Have you been to Maldives?
Yes. For my honeymoon, it was amazing.
Amazing. There's something, people will say Bora Bora versus Maldives. Actually, I love Tahiti and Bora Bora. And if you're on the West Coast, that 8-hour flight is hard to beat. But Maldives, there's something special about just being on a speck of sand in the middle of the Indian Ocean and just resetting and sleeping. Even when it rains, it's sexy in the Maldives. But Tahiti, from July through October, I highly recommend. If you love animals, it's one of the only countries in the world where you can snorkel with humpback whales. You can actually get in the Pacific. And I went for a day and my heart starts racing thinking about it, but being in the Pacific, looking down, and I thought it was a submarine, and it's just a humpback in her calf. And I had this moment of just being 30 feet away, looking at this mother humpback, and it was amazing. And also, Japan, when I quit Morgan Stanley in 2011, I left my cubicle in Times Square and went straight to JFK, flew to Tokyo by myself. It was my first time to Asia. I just quit my job. I knew my life was in for this wild ride. And I spent a week in Tokyo in June of 2011, right after the nuclear incident. So I was the only Western tourist, but just walking through the parks, getting ramen, Japan is just special. So I can't wait for it to reopen. But those are probably some of my favorite trips ever.
I want to end this. We have a tradition. This is called the Erica Taught Me podcast. But really today is all about Brian Taught Me. So what do you want people to walk away from this podcast being able to say, Brian taught me?
I want people to walk away from this podcast saying, Brian taught me it's possible to win at the points game and that travel's still worth it. The travel headlines these days are crazy, but don't let those headlines scare you. I have a lot of friends recently who are canceling trips and it's too much. And travel does not need to be complex. And it's been the biggest gift to me. It has completely changed the way that I view the world. And I think now more than ever, with so much racism and fear of perceived enemies in our media, getting out there and meeting real people globally will change who you are. So I highly encourage people to travel. Use your points because they lose value over time. So having points for me, it's not just about saving money, but it's about having peace of mind. It's about leaving for the airport knowing I got this, right? And I think a lot of people don't want to travel because they feel overwhelmed. The industry's stacked against them. I think what I want to let people know is the Points Guy, we got your back. And as long as you educate yourself, equip yourself with the right tools, credit cards, protections, traveling is amazing. And I highly recommend it.
Thank you so much.
It's been so fun. Thank you.
If you've enjoyed the episode, please take a moment to leave a review. It really helps support what we're doing. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next Tuesday on a brand new episode of Erica Taught Me.